He's another like me who studied thousands of them. And he said that near-death experiences he came to this astounding conclusion that they are scientific proof of a life to come. That was his conclusion.
So you're about to watch a guy named Sean Ryan interview another guy named John Burke about his findings and specific scientific proof that there is life after death. John Burke has interviewed over 1,500 people that have had near-death experiences who've encountered a plethora of different things, including seeing Jesus Christ himself. Super fascinating stuff. I'm going to give my thoughts and comments at the end of this video, so I hope you enjoy. But with that, let's dive in.
So one of the key ones that early on really convinced me, or didn't convince me, but it really got my attention. But there are many like this. Is Pam Reynolds. She was a well-known singer, I think from Nashville actually. And she had a deep brain aneurysm, and she was going to die unless they did this radical exploratory surgery, which is more common now. But what they have to do is they have to lower the body temperature down to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. They drain the brain completely of all blood. They have to make sure the brain is completely shut down because they're going to have to go down deep into the brain to fix the aneurysm. And so as a result, they're monitoring with an EEG. They tape the eyes shut so there are no external stimulation to the eyes. They put 100 decibel clickers in the ears so that then they can make sure there's nothing registering in the brain, just flat EEG. Okay, so this is all counts of clinical death are certain for the surgery to happen, and not many survive the surgery. So it only happens when there's no other option usually. So Pam is going into this surgery, and she's put into the deepest state of anesthesia for 2 hours. And Dr. Spetzler was her neurosurgeon who reported on this. Another a cardiologist that I interviewed, Dr. Sabum, also studied the case. There was a resident, Dr. Green, who has also testified because he was there when all this happened. So you've got medical doctors who are confirming what Pam ended up saying.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, and what people don't realize is like, these accounts have been written up in the Journal of the American Medical Association, in the Lancet, Europe's most prestigious medical journal, in psychiatry, in about 900 peer-reviewed scholarly journals that have reported on near-death experiences because there's something there, right? I mean, all these medical doctors wouldn't, they'd be like, yeah. And that's what many of them are at first, like, I never heard of that. But they didn't ask. And when they start asking, people start reporting. So Pam says she was out of her body and she's watching what's happening. And some of the things she later reports is that there was a female doctor down by her legs saying we can't find it. I can't find it. And the male doctor, Dr. Spetzler, said, try the other leg. And she registered that as strange because it was brain surgery. Like, what are they doing down by my legs? Well, they were trying to find an artery down there. And then it was about over an hour into surgery that they actually took out the saw. And, most people have never seen a brain saw. And, you think it's a saw, right? It's just going to cut. And she reported that when they took it out, it's called the Midas Rex. And she said it actually looked like an electric toothbrush. And they had it almost looked like my dad's socket set, she said, with all these blades in it that they opened up. They didn't open that up until an hour into the deepest state of anesthesia and an hour into surgery, when she couldn't have seen anything. Her eyes are taped shut. There was no brain waves. So where is this memory being registered, right?
Wow.
because she's got 100 decibel clickers in her ears, and they're monitoring that there's no activity in the EEG in her brain. Yet she perfectly reports about that. Then she claims she traveled, and this is another commonality of near-death experiences, through a tunnel to a place of exquisite beauty. She felt the presence, I think it was of her grandfather, and knew that God was there, this God of light and love, who told her she must go back. She comes back, and as she's coming back, they're sewing her up, and they're playing Hotel California, and she hears that. And then they shocked her to get her heart started again, not once, but twice. And she reports that. So when she is revived, all these things that she reports checked out. Now, you could say, oh, that's just, that's a good story, right?
Who's she reporting this to?
To the doctors.
Is this right after surgery?
Yeah.
What are they saying?
Well, I was just in a movie called After Death, which was just in the theaters this fall. And you can see Dr. Green, who was a resident there, and he says she reported things she should not have seen. Dr. Spetzler, who was the neurosurgeon, he's done interviews. He said the same thing. Dr. Sabum, who was also in the movie, he researched it and said, yeah, I mean, she should not have been able to report that. Now, that's not a one-off. That's the thing. So another cardiologist that I spoke with, Dr. Pam van Lommel in the Netherlands, in Holland, he was the one who actually wrote the case up in the Lancet, Europe's medical journal, of a man who was found dead in a park, brought in, or he didn't have a heartbeat. They brought him into the ER. They were going to shock him, but they had to intubate him because he wasn't breathing. And the nurse found dentures. So took the dentures out, put him in the lower drawer of the crash cart. They intubated him. They shocked him. They got his heart started again. But he never came to in the ER. They wheel him out, put him in another room. A week later, he comes to. And he's asking, where are his dentures? You lost my dentures. And then he sees the nurse in the hallway and says, wait, that nurse, get that nurse. That nurse knows where my dentures are. And then he explains that he was in the ER up above trying to get everybody's attention. And he described the doctors, how many were there, who was there, the nurses, what they were wearing, and how that nurse had taken his dentures out and put it in the lower drawer of the cart with all the bottles on it. And that's where they found his dentures. Wow. So he writes this up in the Lancet. Now, Dr. Jan Holden actually did a study on verifiable observations of near-death experiencers. So she took close to 100 patients who had had cardiac arrest and claimed to have a near-death experience. And then, each one might make 10 or 15 observations of what was going on, right? And she went to hospital records, went and interviewed the people there to verify those observations. She found that 92% of their observations were completely accurate. Think about that. 92% were completely accurate. Another 6% were mostly accurate. Only 2%, which turned out to be one patient, were inaccurate.
Wow.
Compared to control groups of people who had had a cardiac arrest, and they asked them, what do you think happened during your resuscitation? And it was guesswork. It was like what they'd seen on ER. 20% accurate maybe.
Man.
Now, that's one of the 10 points of evidence that I write about in Imagine the God of Heaven that convinced me, but not just me, many of these skeptical medical doctors. Most of the ones I know are believers now because of what they've seen and heard studying these.
What are the when you're interviewing these doctors, let's say before they are believers, What do they have any, is there any other explanations?
Well, yeah. So Dr. Sabum, he was a Christian, and he actually set out. So he read the first research I did and said, bogus. I'm a cardiologist. I've never heard a patient say anything about, watching resuscitation or traveling this place of beauty or, this God of light or any of that. And so he set out to disprove it. But when he starts asking his patients, he starts to hear the same things. Now, there's an important reason for that. I mean, back to our analogy. If you experience something more real than this, more amazing, more beautiful, more, and it's kind of sacred to you, and when you try to explain it, people kind of look at you like, yeah, this is the drugs. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of or you're crazy. Mm-hmm. And so it shuts people down. So until more recently, people haven't been willing, not very willing to come forth. I'm amazed at the number of people, when I speak on this, will come up to me and say, that happened to me. And they'll tell me, and I'll ask, like if I'm speaking at a church, have you ever told your pastor? No, never have. Or, just have you ever told anyone? Well, I've told my wife, but that's it. So Dr. Sabum set out to disprove them, starts interviewing his patients, and hears more and more evidence like this. And, like this one guy, Pete, he said, when he was doing resuscitation on me, he had a heart attack, and he was up above his body. He said, tell me what you saw. And Dr. Sabum said, if I had recorded what he said, I could have used that to teach physicians how to do resuscitation. He said he should not have been able to know that. And so he spent 5 years going through medical hospital records, trying to disprove scientifically near-death experiences. And instead, he's the one who wrote the article in the Journal of the American Medical Association, having changed his mind and saying, this is grounded in reality. Dr. Jeffrey Long is an oncologist who read that JAMA article, and he too, he said, oh, that can't be true. That's not right. Because most of these guys are coming from what's called a materialistic point of view, right? Worldview, which says that our brain is like the computer that runs the body. There's no soul. It's just what happens in your brain. It's just electrodes and, what happens across electrical synapses in your brain. But this has changed a lot of people's minds. And so Dr. Long also starts asking patients, starts hearing more and more, and then he sets up a whole research foundation, and he's now studied thousands. He's another like me who's studied thousands of them. And he said that near-death experiences he came to this astounding conclusion that they are scientific proof of a life to come. That was his conclusion.
Yo, whether you realize it or not, every single human being is appointed one time to die and then to face God's judgment. It says this clearly in Hebrews 9:27. But what is this judgment even about? Listen to this. It says this in John chapter 3. And this is the judgment. The light has come into the world, and people loved the darkness rather than the light, because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed. But whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. Did you catch that? It says this phrase, the light has come into the world. This is describing Jesus. And if you don't know Jesus and you want to get to know him, you want to give your life to him, maybe for the first time, I encourage you to click this video. I'm going to link it right here. And if it doesn't pop up, I'll definitely put a link in the description below. But I would love to, right this moment, walk you through how you could give your life to the Lord right now. With that, I love you guys. I hope this video blessed you. I hope it encouraged you. I got a bunch of videos in the pipeline. They're going to dive more into topics like this, so I encourage you to stay tuned. And if you want to, please subscribe. If you like this video, like it. But until next time, I love you guys, and together, let's soar.